Howdy, folks. So our first unit's main learning goal is to analyze a text by citing textual evidence in order to support things that we see or ideas that we have. So to break this down, first piece we're going to work on is this idea of inference. And what inference is the ability to identify and explain or come to a conclusion based on the things that we are seeing in a text. And specifically, we're going to focus on trying to find some complexity and some insight drawn from the text. So let's go over what those two are. Insight is the ability to arrive at big ideas using only small clues, and complexity is the kind of acceptance that there's oftentimes multiple factors that shape what is true. It's not just, A plus B equals C. It's, all these variables coming together and working in different ways to create our perception in regards to what we believe. So let's take a look at this idea of insight. And it's not that complicated of an idea. It just takes a little bit of work to do. So I've got this image here of our mental schema, where each one of these nodes represents something that we are aware of, right? And then we start to draw connections between our different nodes to create a bigger web. And this is kind of what we're talking about in terms of insight. All we have to do to start on our path towards inference is just start making observations, recognize, what an author is talking about. How are things described? What's the tone of voice that the characters use? What's the exposition? What's happening in the story? And we start creating these little plot points on our web. And through that, we can start connecting them. But we have to make sure that we're really paying attention because the little things add up. And we don't want to miss something if we're not paying that close of attention. So once we have kind of all of our nodes on our mental map, we've gone through, we've read a story, we've tried to create some insight by just recognizing things, we're going to try to address the idea of complexity. And when I'm talking about complexity, what I'm asking for is that we're going beyond just simple explanations, observations, and generalizations, right? So I saw one thing happen in the story, cool, that's what I'm going to focus on. That's kind of losing the forest through the trees, right? Where I want us to explore carefully, like as we're going through creating our insights and making observations, really pay attention to what's there or what's not there, and consider multiple influences on event, right? So as a human being, it's never just one thing that happens to you that is going to guide the rest of your life, right? There's all sorts of factors that go into creating who you are. And the same is true for, an argument or a book or a painting, right? There's a lot of elements that come together to make this thing what it is. And especially when we're talking about literature and life, be sure to explain the idea that there's a lot of things pulling on us. Like recognize the idea that there's multiple forces within our lives and within a story that help make it as complex, even if it seems seemingly simple. So let's practice this. I'll give you an example of like a really simple generalization for an idea. So here's a short little poem called Deer Hunt by Judson Jerome. Because the warden is a cousin, my mountain friends hunt in the summer when the deer cherish each rattler-written spring. And I've waited hours by a pool in fear that manhood would require that I shoot, or that steady drip of the hill would dull my ear to a snake whispering near the log I sat upon, and listen to the yelping cheer of dogs and men resounding ridge to ridge. I flinched at every lonely rifle crack, my knuckles whitening where I gripped the edge of age and clung, like retching, sinking back, and gripping once again to the monstrous gun, since I, to be a man, had taken one. So there's a lot going on there. And I could just distill this down and recognize one thing about this poem and say like, oh yeah, the narrator's scared. He doesn't want to go deer hunting. He's scared of it. That would be a really simple, broad generalization of what's going on. So in order to kind of dig a little bit deeper, I'm going to try to look at some different points and connect them, right? Create a more complex web of what's actually going on. So I might say something like the narrator feels pressured and inequity from his family and his wider society to take part in this rite of passage, killing a deer. because we see, his cousin is a game warden. There's all sorts of other men like getting really excited about, what may be the first day of hunting season. And he's sitting here and he's pretty anxious and nervous, right? He's scared of snakes. He's clutching his gun at every shot that he hears because I don't know if it's hard to tell if he's like nervous about the gunshots themselves or if he's nervous about himself having to take a shot there and actually, kill a deer, which is a big deal the first time that you do it. Um, and while searching for acceptance, he feels unprepared, unready, and anxious in nature. So look at the difference between those two observations. Simple observation, yeah, he was scared about deer hunting. Complex observation, yes, he's scared, but because of these different reasons. And it's more than just fear, it's unpreparedness and it's anxiety that's pressuring him. So remember, when we're creating and working on inferences, um, start small. Don't feel like you need to unpack everything right away. Just what are you noticing with small observations first, and then try to keep connecting these dots until you're able to identify and explain a complex insight that you can draw from text. All right. Good luck, folks.